ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, humans of all genders, and welcome to another exciting episode of King Me Rev's High Podcast. I am very excited. I'm going to be honest with you. Very excited about this particular podcast because we have a very special guest today, an absolute standout, Justin Ciardullo, all right, also known as Gia Savitz. Gia Savitz, Justin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's actually, I know it's hard to pronounce the last name. It's actually Ciardullo.
Ciardullo.
It takes people
lots of practice.
Yeah, you're probably the 1 billionth person. It takes a lot of time, and yeah. So my apologies about that.
There you go. At least we got smiles and fun right off the bat, guys. There you go. You know, life is busy. Life. Well, maybe I'll go with John Lennon, right? He had the life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. So,
That's
boom,
true.
there you go. So, as always, we like to shed a spotlight on the powerful stories and the real life experiences of our guests. And today we have something very special. We're going to be talking about your documentary, The Match to Kill. I got the pleasure of watching it, and I was very excited when you reached out to me and sent everything over. Also, you know, the comic book as well, graphic novel, if you will. And it was very exciting for me, to be honest, like to get your message. I think I missed it for like 2 weeks, so apologies about that. You know, the holidays are kind of such a crazy time that sometimes I'm not paying attention to all 47 social medias at once. But when I had popped on finally and saw your message, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. You had reached out, and it looked like it was going to be great. So. Yeah, thank you so much for reaching out to me and being here today. I really appreciate it.
Welcome, and thank you again.
Awesome. Yeah. So before we jump into the documentary, I figured, you know, myself and the audience should get to know you a little bit best and get to know you a little better. To be honest, my brain's a little hectic. I actually just did another podcast with somebody from like 9 to like noon. So I'm like, okay, reset, bro. You're back in it. Let's go. So for listeners who might not be familiar with your background, can you share some insight into your professional wrestling career and what like first drew you to the independent scene?
Yeah. Well, with professional wrestling career, it's been very, very unique. It started in 2004 in your stomping grounds, New England, Massachusetts. God bless Massachusetts for that opportunity. And it's an interesting story. So I trained with Flesh Eater Cavacho and Joe DeSilvio, which is real name's Ray Morales. And I'm sorry, Flesh Eater Cavacho is also Ray Morales, who also ran NWA Big Apple for Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan actually came in a little after Ray started. And Ray's been around for a while. Ray's a terrific guy, very lovable. So is Joe. Two lovable guys. And sometimes when I get love, well, at least years ago, when I would receive this love and affection from anyone, I sometimes would just get a little carried away with it. So I'm going to be honest with the training with Ray and Joe. So while it was good training, it lasted for about 5 months. And while I got enough stuff under my belt with it, I did take a hiatus. And I was questioning, about me doing it, about me pursuing that. So time went on. And of course, Ray and Joe and I, severed ties. Nothing bad. I did see Ray recently at the NWA Big Apple show I was telling you about. So we're fine. And Joe and I saw each other after the training ended, and we talked on the phone, and also we saw each other at a diner one time, and everything's fine. But going back to after the training, I took time off and I said, I don't know if this is for me. And I questioned that a lot about myself with all that. I even was trying to train with Jason Knight back in 2001. And then I questioned that. So there was some questionable things on my end. But then time went on. I thought about it. And so then I said to myself that, Ray told me no one graduates. You think you finish training, no one graduates after training. You're always learning something new. So I said, I'm lying in my bed. This was May '04. Lying in my bed. I only got 4 hours of sleep. So then I woke up after those 4 hours of sleep, woke up. Next morning I said, I have to travel and I have to do, and this is inspiration from the Hardys and guys like that who learned on the job. So while I had this training with Ray and Joe, I still had other things to do. So I had to learn on the job. So I got in touch with the boy next door. I contacted a bunch of people, and then I got in touch with the boy next door, Timothy Pittman, who is a mainstay throughout Massachusetts, New England. He's retired since then. He's somewhat of a journeyman, you could kind of say. And he also worked with Bob Evans. Bob Evans knows him, and I worked with Bob Evans, of course, later on, but we get to that later on. So Tim Pittman booked me for MUW, Massachusetts Underground Wrestling, which was in a warehouse in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Which New Bedford's a great town. It was a nice Portuguese neighborhood, all these Portuguese restaurants, very nice. So anyhow, so we had this show, and Zach Carter, who's a well-known referee throughout New England, he's gone up and down New England, and then he also, at the time, he finished the show, I think, in Canada. So he was there, and Zach is a great guy, but he's tough, takes the business very seriously. So does Tim, but Zach was very, headstrong, he would be hard on you. And I will admit, I was very kind of fragile back then, which I could get further into that later. So Zach's words were kind of so I was a little intimidated by Zach. So here's Zach as a referee, but Zach knew a lot of things. Zach could work, which he did work the show too, and he refereed. So he could do a lot of stuff here. So he has a right to run his mouth off. And I feel like if someone tries to run their mouth off and tell you something, take it to heart and maybe utilize it in a positive. Sometimes a lot of people, especially in that industry, they tell you things like this and they don't mean it viciously. And me being the sensitive guy, it kind of is hard. But now I take it like it's worth it. For that industry, you got to take that. So, so then I ended up, working with Tim. We were making makeshift matches on the spot, and we called it King of New Bedford Tournament. Now, we had a crowd of 3 people. We had a small, intimate crowd, and which is understandable. Molly Holly, I know her first match, I think barely anyone showed up. She had a crowd about like that. She was saying that I think it was on WWE Confidential. She was saying, so it's okay, this happened, whatever. But we did tape some stuff. We did tape footage. Of course, it's actually in the documentary. So while it never aired, it's in the documentary. You could see it in there. And the match was pretty cool. It showed an intensity in me. Tim was a great guy to work with. There were some things that were a little off with me at the time, but we had an old school Southern match kind of thing in some ways here with some of the movement and everything. It was fun. It was great, and I felt very good, and I was happy with it despite the small crowd. I felt good about it. I felt it was just amazing that it happened. And I never really thought of it as much, but now I'm a New England guy now. I live in Connecticut permanently, so it's I have to give props more and more to Massachusetts and everything. So it was great at that time to go through that. And then of course other stuff persisted after that throughout the Indies, working through other territories: Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New York. And then most recently, I just worked Maine, doing booking, producing for Supernova Wrestling in Portland, which was March of last year for Draft Night 2025.
Yeah, I mean, so you've definitely been around the blocker a few times, right?
Yeah.
Which is great. I do love how you talked about that. That's actually something that I talk about frequently in this channel, was like constructive criticism, right? Being myself, I was in the army. I've been around. I've had to earn my stripes, right? I've had to. Um, I've had a fair share, I would say, of constructive criticism, and I do feel like in general, most people aren't as comfortable or used to constructive criticism, but and then obviously there are people out here they're just jerks and they just say mean things to be mean. But my drill sergeant, when he was being mean, he was doing it because he wanted to make sure I didn't die on the battlefield somewhere, right? So it wasn't he was trying to hurt my feelings. He was trying to wake me up to the truth. And I love the fact that you were so, even though it was, you said it yourself, it was a little more difficult for you to handle that constructive criticism. I commend you for being able to take it with that grain of salt and understand that these people weren't trying to beat you down or put you down in some
No,
way. They were trying to do their best to help you from their particular standpoint. I mean, a guy who's able to work and be a referee, I mean, clearly he knows a thing or two. So that's the kind of person, well, as they say for the rookies, right? Keep your mouth shut and your eyes and ears open, right? So
it's true.
it's wonderful that you were able to, even from such an early, start of this whole thing, to be able to understand that and comprehend it. It shows a lot of character in yourself, I would say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So, are you still active in wrestling today, or has your path taken some exciting new turns? Or
Well, I did, as I said, I did work Supernova Wrestling.
right,
I was supposed to work. I was hired as the head writer, but I was supposed to work more shows. But I had to take care of more things for Jambone, other stuff that other projects I'm working on. Um, but the Supernova show was it was definitely a fun experience, and it was hard to handle though because I hadn't done anything really outside of the To Match to Kill, Ballad of Gene and Frankie since 2018. Last time I wrestled was 2015, and then after that, I was doing more like personal appearance stuff for big event, working with um, someone from Glow, Jeannie Hollywood, of course, Multi Damager, Ali Rex, those people.
there you
But
go.
it's been a while, so I was nervous. It was a 4 hour ride going to Portland, Maine, which was not the worst thing in the world, but
Yeah,
I just couldn't believe, I couldn't believe that I was doing this riding. I'm like, okay, this is unbelievable, and I was a bit scared because I looked at the guy who owns the company is Adam Saint, um, and he had some scary dudes. At first, I thought he had some scary dudes on his executive committee. Um, Shiz Lansky and Paul Jones. At first, they appear to be intimidating. Like, oh my god, what's going to happen to me? And here I am, like working on this booking. I'm looking at this booking sheet, and I have to put my input in because Adam really was setting the layout here. So I'm looking at this booking sheet, and then I'm looking at the podcast that Adam is doing with Shiz. They have Off the Top Rope podcast with Shiz and Paul Jones, and I was like, okay, now I got to see what's going on here. This is scary. These guys look really scary. I'm like, and what the hell is happening here? And I'm like, I got to be, better be on guard here and better be careful. Make sure that I can't be messed with here. So I was trying to be very, very particular of what's going on here. Turns out these guys were marshmallows. Shiz and Paul. Sorry, Shiz and Paul, but I'm gonna have to say the truth. You guys are sweethearts. Especially Shiz likes to act like a real tough guy, but I know he's a sweetheart by heart. So I was definitely blown away. We worked well together. Shiz, we all were good. Paul Jones has a beautiful heart. He drives a van for a disabled elementary school students, who was saying. So it was like he was a teddy bear. He took care of me, and he noticed, I think too, that I hadn't done this in a while, and I was a bit like I wanted to cry backstage. Literally, I was assigned in agenting, producing the Gauntlet match with Yusef Odinson, Damien Darko, Q the Pit. Those guys, they were in this Gauntlet match. There's another guy, I forgot his name. They were, I think it was more of an enhancement talent at the beginning for SNW. and I had to do this gauntlet match. I had to agent it, and then I did a segment too. I had to produce a segment, direct a segment. So it was a very, very interesting experience, learning experience. I learned about how I've evolved since the last time I was in the industry. Things have changed with me too, and how I'm seeing things. There's even people over there that take it seriously, like it's a real fight. I got to hang out with Mustafa Jordan, who's actually also a trained martial artist, does Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, travels, does trains with New Japan, travels all around the world. So this was, and Drew Gulak was there, who also does like has that MMA type thing. So there was a very, I think I had to take that show very seriously because it kind of says to me like this says something about what the future is now. I think now there's something to look deeper into, that you've done a lot of character type stuff with your stuff in the past, but now you're exceeding just a character and you're looking at things equivalent to maybe MMA, maybe boxing, and all this other stuff here that things are changing, and now it's time to kind of raise the bar a bit. So was that the last pro wrestling indie show I've ever done? That I'm never going to do any again. I hope not. I do want more opportunities. I was questioning if I should have kind of asked Adam Saint for an on-air role, and it was getting tempting. There was Nahir Robles, who's you must know. Do you know Nahir Robles at all? Have you heard of her at all? Okay, so she's something else. She's a very unique talent. And then there was Aries Perez, who travels all over the place. And they were making this really realistic thing for me. Like they really like they get so into their stuff that like I felt like I was back in high school. Like I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm back in high school. And we got these two people here. And I know Nahir's a sweetheart. Nahir likes to try to, she could be tough, but she's a real doll. And Aries is a good guy too. But they had this aura around them, like that they were like these like kind of like Nahir's the woman that everyone wants in high school, blah blah blah. And here's this hot guy Aries comes along. He just brought back this bizarre memory to me. It was just amazing. And they're young. It was just amazing how it was. And I'm like, and they were, and then so I said to myself, they really make me want to stay in SNW. They make me, want to put this thing back on and put this thing back on here.
Wow.
Get in there and let them have, because I would run my mouth off in a promo. Let them have it, and if Adam can set that up, and then we would work something. Me and Aries, I would go back to. So there's things like that I love. That makes me fuels the passion in me in wrestling when we have this realistic quality where it brings back me, because I was a misfit. I didn't fit in much back in high school and in grammar school. So you got these things that bring back the hotshot guy who gets all the girls. I was a social flaw back then. So it was just things like that just are amazing when you have this realistic quality, or brings back things in your subconscious that just makes things fun. And it adds that realistic quality along with this stuff where you got guys doing martial arts. So I don't want that show to be the last hurrah ever. Something else has to come along. If there's another Nahir, another Aries, whatever it is that could get me going, that would make me want to do more stuff again. And I know Adam Saint was sweet enough to say that you are up for reevaluation. If we're able to fit you in, that could be a possibility. We'll see what's going to happen here.
Dan, you said so many wonderful things in that. And first of all, I got to stop and just really point out and say that I genuinely respect and appreciate your honesty, right? You opened up to me, you shared some wonderful, beautiful things. And I respect that, right? So much. Shout out to Drew Gulag too, because I absolutely love that guy.
Great guy to talk to. Yeah.
My daughter and I have seen him at a couple of shows, and he's always been so courteous to the both of us. In fact, I went to a Focus Pro show once, and I didn't
Yeah.
bring my daughter. And he's like, "Hey, where's the kid?" You know what I mean? So he was, most for the most part, we're a package deal most times. So it was cool of him to be like, "Oh, I love you, but your daughter's cool too. Where is she?" Right? So that was cool. And once again, I do feel like there are a lot of those people in this industry that seem like they would be some scary dudes, some big tough guys, and then you
Yeah.
you get to talk to them, you bend their ear a little bit, and you figure out, bro, can I give you a hug? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh, or even maybe they're not necessarily they seem like intimidating or scary, but they just seem like a wild, crazy guy, right? So like let's say like Brian Bayside, right?
He's
He's
he,
everywhere. But and he does some of the most wackiest craziest stuff. He does some of the like especially at Focus Pro, he does some of the more I wouldn't say hardcore matches, but he gets pretty wild in his stuff. So you would think he's just like this wild party animal, but sorry Brian if I'm blowing up your spot right now, but he's given me the big Brian bro hug before, and it's like all right, I love these guys. So shout out to Focus Pro. So it's wonderful to always hear those type of stories. Even Drew, once again, he does have that background. He's got that stature, so it's kind of my daughter is almost like I don't know if I want to go over there, or um Big Trouble Ben Bishop, just him being
great.
big
Great.
6'12", but he's got the best sense of humor. You know what I mean?
I love watching his videos, especially when he does the tribal Keith. I don't
The
know if you ever see
Tribal
those
Chief.
videos, and he
Oh
says
my
they're
god.
the IWC king of the IWC,
Oh
and
my god.
he's talking about cage matches. I will say they brought AJ Lee back. Do you see her ratings? They're 3 stars. Not very
Oh,
good.
I love it. I love it. And he goes to Focus Pro as well. So anytime we see him, we're like, oh, the
Yeah.
Tribal Keith. I came up with the idea for a skit for him to do with my daughter, and he said when she's ready, he'll do it with her. So I really can't wait for that. That's going to be a lot of fun because he's such a nice guy. But um, yeah, no, it's great to hear that you're still open and ready for the next chapter, whatever that is, right? Anybody watching? Hey, maybe Gia Savitz is ready to get back in the saddle. Give
Well,
him a
also,
call.
yeah. Well,
Get on
also
the record.
Julius Drager was at that show, and he impressed me too. I mean,
Traeger, yeah,
he really is very very serious, in a way that he's old school. I feel like I'm
really,
watching, and I saw the match that you had up with Quentin Winters and him. I saw the
yeah,
highlights, and the timing was so great. And these guys are trying to. I see how they worked. It was like they're trying to show more wrestling, and I'm not really a fan of high spots. Really, I'm going to just point blank say that. I want to see someone suspending my disbelief, and so yeah, it was nice talking to him. But everyone was really cool at that show, and I didn't really want to mention specific names. It's just that these were more people I had more of an intimate conversations with, or
of
people
course.
that were bringing that were just had some things that would really draw. But even Nick Thompson was there. There was a lot of just everyone, a lot of great guys over there. Then Billy Avery worked, Julius Drager. Just everyone was really great over there. But yeah, I mean, I'm very specific with what promotions to work for. You got to give me some, and I'm trying to sound crazy here, but you have to give me something that is kind of like equivalent to Jean Claude Van Damme going into Bloodsport, the
There
Kumite,
you go.
whatever you want, or last Kumite. And I see a lot of guys doing that now. You got to give me something like that, unless I'm sounding off alarms for Josh Barnett. I don't know, but just something that's really going to get me going. So we'll see what's going to happen here. But regardless of what path I'm taking long term in indie wrestling, I don't want S&W to be the last hurrah and that's it.
Of
And then we could
course.
just go along and do film stuff. That's it. There's got to be other indie promotions I could work for. And we're going to see where this journey is going to be taking me.
Of course. And yeah. Shout out to Drager. He's he was on the podcast as you know, and that was a really great podcast. We talked for like 3 hours, and then we ended up talking for a little bit afterwards. While he was sitting there like making a sandwich, and his wife was like, "Are you making a sandwich and still on the podcast?" And he's like, "Oh, no, 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 no. We're just BSing because we're both nerds. We love video games, so we're just hamming it up." But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. That's one of the things that really drew my eye about Drager when I saw him. I was like, okay, you really don't see as many old school wrestlers anymore. You really don't. A lot of people, and once again, you said it. Not trying to bash anybody for doing high spots and the flashiness and the whatever else. That's what you're doing, bro. Good for you. But I do love, a good old school, heel especially that's going to get in there and tie it up and you know, get back to basics, I guess you could say. But it's just, and he does it so well. He really kind of, especially when they boo him for like from the great state of New Hampshire, and he's just like, you could just see him soaking in all the booze. It's like, yes, you know what I mean? And he's got the look. If he's like, he could have just walked out of 1915 or something. So, um, it's great. I love it. So I know sometimes you can't pick out names or whatever, and I'm not a gotcha journalist, that's for sure. But wrestling fans love some of those behind the scenes stories. Do you have any like wild tales from those back in the day, or maybe a crazy match, or a road trip, or a character
Yeah,
moment or something like something one of your favorites?
yeah. We have a lot of quite a bit of wild stories. I was involved with some people that were respected, and it is mentioned in the documentary. And I'm gonna have to point blank and maybe talk about this a bit. I don't want to mention any specific names until you watch the documentary, and you're gonna get an idea of who these people are.
Of course.
I had some interactions with an ECW legend, um, who was uh, who was a bit. I took him. Um, this I'm going to mention really for the most part because there was something that got kind of like I felt like a father was taking me over. This guy had been through a lot of places. He's an ECW. He's one of the first ECW originals, but I'm not going to mention his name right now. He was in WWE when it was WWF. Had a tryout. Claimed he said the wrong thing and he didn't make it, and he said he learns from it. It's hard for me, and the guy died from he murdered his wife in front of his kids and then killed himself. So I mean, it's pretty. People that are maybe watching this, they may know who I'm referring to. I just don't want to say it right now. But his name is mentioned in the documentary. We had an issue where I had a show booked at his venue because I didn't have enough money at the time, so I had to rent his promoter's license in Pennsylvania. And we had a miscommunication. I don't really want to blame him totally and say it was totally his fault. It's possibility that I miscommunicated. He said stuff about what do you want on a flyer before we signed and sealed that we would have a show in August 2006. That was when it was around. So he said what he wanted. So I was assuming he was making the flyers. Maybe what he did mean by that was that what do you want on a flyer, meaning what type of um, ideas do you want me to give you? So we didn't really communicate well enough. I was going to cancel the show, and he said, "You're not going to cancel the show here. This is a business. I'm going to sue you." I didn't show. Now this was maybe not the best mistake. I didn't show. Now do kind of regret this. And now do you know Marcus Mathers at all? He's part
Yeah.
of. Okay, his
Yeah.
father, who I was friends with at the time, Mark Angel, he was booked for the show. Mark Angel and I made up after that, and Mark was saying, "I know it's not totally your fault." And of course, I booked Mark for a show that I was helping out with in Pennsylvania later on, so we were fine. But and his son I know is doing great, which is great. But it was I didn't show up. Four people showed up at the show. I didn't show up because there was some things I was afraid I was gonna get roughed up, whatever it was here. So he was so he sent me a lawsuit to my post office from the lawyer must have sent it. So, and he had a track record of suing people, trying to sue people like crazy. He loved doing that, and it was even reported on Wikipedia that his school was in hot water because there was too many lawsuits against it, whatever it was. So obviously he loves lawsuits. It seemed like he loved it. Um, yeah, so that was, and the reason why I mentioned this more is because we had things in common. He had me do a tryout before we agreed on a show that I would book on my own, promote on my own, and he had me with Velvet Sky, manage her against JT Moses, and I did talk about that in the documentary, that thing in a way that I had a fan call me a 6-letter F word. I don't want to say it on the air.
Of course.
But it was a 10-year-old boy said this out in Pennsylvania. So obviously my character was over. I know in today's society, they don't want that now, but that was going on back then.
Yes.
But the show was a bit wild. Rebel loved me in there, but Rebel and I, when I did the tryout, it was with Ricky Reyes. We had a nice conversation. We agreed on things in the wrestling business before ECW, the relaunch by WWE was being put out there. We talked about it and we understood the logistics of what it could be. And lo and behold, yes, what we predicted actually happened. It wasn't going to be the same.
Of course.
And yeah, so we had that in common. And then he said something that I will never forget. He said, I got, and he would talk like this in a voice like this. Now people are going to know who I'm referring to. He would say, well, I got some people here complaining to me that, I'm working too stiff. You know what I say to them? If you can't handle it, don't be in the business. Now, do I agree with him on that? Yeah, I do agree with what he said. He's absolutely right about that. And then he mentioned how I'm too nice. People say I'm too nice and people try to take advantage of me. So I'm hearing some of these things and it's like, I think he always meant to have a good heart, judging by how we were communicating. And I think he was maybe too nice to try to get ahead. And he was trained by Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson back in '88. So if people may know referring to it, I just don't want to really say it so much. And also I don't want to say too much to protect his family. I mean, his kids didn't have to go through that, but
Right.
So that was hard. And John, the director of TMTK, The Match to Kill, knows the damage that this has done to me psychologically. And I ended up doing a few shoot promos on him at NEWA shows, which you could see one of them in the documentary. George Nadiello, the promoter of NEWA at the time, gave me creative input to do what I wanted to do. So when I made my debut as a manager, I go out there and I said I was screwed by his name, and it's in the documentary. And I said it right in the open in front of the fans in New Egypt, New Jersey. New Jersey fans I love New Jersey fans. So they ate it up. They were going crazy. But deep down, I was hurting. I mean, you could tell the tone of my promo. You could tell I was in a lot of pain. That really scarred me. It was similar to Shane Douglas shooting on WCW and XPW and did that promo with Candido and Tammy Sitch. And when he was obviously pissed off, he said they fired me. And he said he called up Sullivan to tell Sullivan F you, whatever it was here, right in the middle of the ring, that in California. So it was Shane Douglas also was one of the guys I idolized. So I got influenced by him throughout the years. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Pull a Shane, go out there and just air your grievances out, or do like a pipe bomb promo. And this was 3 years before Punk did his pipe bomb promo. So George Nadiello and Michael Mazzetta, the booker of NEW, loved it. They were like, and eventually they said, George said later on, you're one of the first guys to do a pipe bomb promo like that. You aired your grievances, you did all you wanted here. A lot of indie promoters are like, that's a no-no, you're not doing that on my show. George said, whatever, just do it. And when it comes to my most favorite promotion I ever worked for, it was NEWA. George treated it like a big-time thing, and we talk about that in the documentary. And it was a great experience because it was like I felt like I was hired by WWE, WCW, a big time company here. And when at the first show I worked for them, which was their second show, my first show, it was like I felt like I was larger than life. That's how much they didn't want to make it like their standard indie promotion. So it was just like, so yeah, I aired my grievances. I did what I had to do. And the rest is history. Do I have any regrets about doing that type of promo, especially in the now? Yes, I do. I wouldn't do that now. I wouldn't do that now. I would probably try to make better choices now. I wouldn't have gotten involved with a guy like that. Now I've gotten older, wiser. So if this were now, you wouldn't see a promo like that. But back then, due to me going through a lot of stuff back then, personal, professional differences, internal, external struggles, I was a train wreck.
See, and I genuinely appreciate your honesty. I know I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but it's beautiful when people open up and like really express themselves. So I always want to make sure to point that out. But like, you know, especially, I just turned 40 a couple of months ago. There's so much more that I know now at 40 just in life, right? Literally just in the span of life that I would never do that I did at 20. So the idea of you saying that, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense, right? You get a little older, you get a little wiser, you see a few things. Maybe you see that toxic person and you walk away, right? You don't engage. You just get out of the building. And that's definitely wasn't me 20 years ago. I saw that toxic person and I attacked. And I was like, let's
Yeah,
go. You want to fight? Let's
yeah,
go. I'm going to fight you. But now I'm just like, it's not worth my time, man. It's not worth my time. So that actually kind of leads into the beautiful answer that kind of leads into my next question. I was going to ask you, like, do you have any key lessons or experiences that have stuck with you and influenced you, not only like maybe in your storytelling, but in life in general? Something that you would have learned during your wrestling career that you've kept in life?
well, it's funny you mentioned that because it kind of goes back to we were talking about S&W and how that taught me something about evolution.
Right.
One thing I've learned is that um, when it comes to storytelling, I feel like pro wrestling has to look like a fight. Now, there is a legitimate fight, and I feel like today that's in certain aspects with certain things. I feel like that's lacking, and not with everything, but there's certain things I'm turning on, and I'm like, this is not what made me a fan um, at all, and I'm turning on that. I like that that just that tune where it looks like a real fight. There was a video that GTS Wrestling put out just about a month and a half, 2 months ago, called "Pro Wrestling is Dead." Now, I'm not saying that it definitely is dead, but he put out this video and he made some interesting points. He said talking about companies closing down that were hot at one point, indie companies, and now they closed down. He's talking about things have to look like a fight. You have to make it look like how it has to be. He was like saying, like, look at our show Brewery Brawl. Look how we did with that. He's trying to say pro wrestling has to be broad because I believe in that, and I know working for Adam Saint and S&W, he believes in that, and so does John Ambrose, JV Ambrose, the director of The Match to Kill, believes in that. The owner of GTS Wrestling states that it has to look like a real fight and it has to be in a broad sense here. And he's just saying that things are just like, and also I feel like we're, also with storytelling too, is that I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm not too crazy about rehearsing matches backstage. And I never really did that. We would do 3 spots and then take it from there. It didn't always work out the way I wanted to. There were times things looked like shit. No, sorry about that. There's no 7-second delay. Is there a guy in the control room over there going to delay? No. So anyhow, yeah, we tried to call, and I know back in the day you had heels and faces had 2 separate locker rooms. And I
Yeah.
think even
Yeah.
Wendy Richter was saying that we didn't have time to really. I think it was Wendy Richter because I love her. I think it was. She was saying that we didn't have time to go over stuff. We had to call out. Just go out there and call it. And I like that. I like that. I really like that a lot. I feel like, and I know I was just watching the David Hero documentary, A Wrestling Journey, and David Hero I think is great. But I was seeing the setup with Mr. Anderson and his opponent, and they did a good job in there. But I'm just not a fan of things like that. I feel like storytelling has to happen as if like we're going out there and we're sparring on a jujitsu mat, or we're going out
Yeah.
there doing some Muay Thai
You
or
gotta make it organic, right?
yeah,
If everything is super planned out and I actually just heard a similar thing. Um, I actually just had on Landon Hale. I was talking to Landon Hale. We kind of got into a little bit, and we were bringing up the idea of like, if you sit there and you map out your whole thing and then you forget your map, when you get out there, you're just going to be a deer in the headlights, and then you're just,
yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's like
yeah,
it's it's not the worst in the world to kind of talk about it and get a little bit, but like at the same time, what if what you're planned isn't working? Like, what if you go
I
out there
know,
and the crowd's not feeling it? You, and now you're like, I don't know what to do because I had all these planned things, and the
yeah,
crowd doesn't like it, and now you're derailed. You're just gonna stand there and talk to each other like, so kind of think like so, and there's the spot fests, where it's just like too many sometimes, and no disrespect to the people that do it. I understand they make more money than I do, so whatever. Um, but there's so many times where it sends like people are just standing around waiting for their spots, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like, there's no reason why you would just stand there for 10 minutes waiting for a guy to jump on top of you. I'm sorry. Like, it just no. And it happens a lot in certain places. And, you know, I love when you were saying it a minute ago, like an idea of like a promoter um, kind of going out on the limb and letting you even do the pipe bomb in the first place. I like when people are willing to do that type of stuff because to me, I'd rather have them go in that direction than to put it in because that's that match where it's super planned out and they're doing the spots and they're clearly standing around waiting for somebody to land on them. Like that's the kind of time where we get a non-wrestling fan who walks in the room and says, "I told you it wasn't real." You know what I mean? Like you're making the rest of us look bad too by proxy. Thank you so much. So I
yeah,
couldn't agree with you more. I would genuinely prefer, obviously if there's something big you want to do and you got to set it up or whatever, then yeah, okay, I get it. Like you gotta, or like the Royal Rumble, right? You gotta know who's going out when. It makes sense. But in between the rest of the stuff, like, is it so horrible if you just kind of, make it work together, right? So
true.
I definitely respect what you're saying there. I'm sure Jim Cornette would love it too. Um, the idea of let's go out there and put on a show, and not just a spot fest, not just a flipping competition, not just a super kick competition where 60 everybody's super kicking each other for 15 minutes. Like it's just like, come on, guys, let's keep it real.
Exactly.
Um, so next question here is, what was it like getting involved with Jambone Pictures, like switching over from wrestling into this new territory, so to speak?
Well, this was after. See, I left pro wrestling business November 2018. After the big event with Hollywood from Glow and Multi the Damager, we had a personal appearance we set up at the big event. I was with GSM Productions and WTF at the time. Um, I just felt like it just wasn't going anywhere, and I think you can't really say that. You can't really say that too much about yourself. Um, I think what's going on here is there's this perception, this standard perception from everybody. It seems like that you can't make money in pro wrestling. Um,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's exactly the case. It takes a lot. It takes marketing, and I think and here's what I'm going to be very 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 specific. What needs to also happen, I think, this is a little bit of a side thing, is that the promoters and the wrestlers have to work more together when it comes to marketing. I feel like now, like I remember ECW and I'm hearing about everyone doing something here because they want to see the company grow. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of things now. I could be wrong, but this is my initial reaction as I'm watching things on social media, Facebook more specifically. Um, I feel like wrestlers are doing all the marketing, come to the show, doing the promos, and I feel like there has to be better communication. I feel like between the promoters and the wrestlers, and I feel like people should see their companies thrive more. I don't know if these companies. I feel like back in first of all, I feel like we have the territory system is back. It seems
Yeah.
like.
Right.
But in order for that to look more like the territory system is definitely confirmation back, I think what has to be said is that there has to be marketing where everyone's communicating. It just seems like people aren't communicating enough together. And it seems like a lot of people say, well, I want to be booked everywhere to go to the big time stuff, whatever it is here. I just feel like these companies, indie promotions, could thrive more. They could build more income. They could, you know, more could be done. So back then in 2018, I left because I felt like there's no money to be made. This is a, and then so then I was also selling merchandise, collectibles at that big event. So I took those collectibles I didn't sell, put them on eBay, and my eBay business went up with those wrestling collectibles. So those little signs, breadcrumbs being dropped, that saying you can't leave. So in May 2019, I made a vow saying you have to go back. And I was working. There was something else separate from John that I've been working on. That I've been working on since May 2019, which I can't go into all the details. It's still being worked out. So that was the thing. That was the thing here that kind of planted seeds here. And then John got in touch with me in June. I didn't get his email and I didn't get his notification. I didn't find out he contacted me though until I got a phone call from my friend in July saying I got a Jambone Pictures contacted me because they couldn't get a hold of me because John was contacting me through an older email that I don't really answer. So I never got. So then my friend Fran had to call me and tell me this gentleman emailed me, and I'm like, "What is this about?" It's like she was like, I have no idea. So, and then we just worked things out. And first we started out doing the film Ballad of G and Frankie. And then that film got accepted by 19 festivals. Made it farthest to the semifinal round. Then we did a comic book. Still, we felt like the ballad film wasn't really clicking. There was a lack of continuity. And we got even feedback from a well-known independent filmmaker who's in my area, Larry Locke, who's a terrific man, and I belong to Norwalk Film Festival. So I met him over there, and he gave me constructive criticism and said, your movie looks like just a bunch of reels put together. This doesn't look like a movie. So he gave me advice. I sent this to John. I said, John, we got to do something. So John said, okay. John finally tarred, feathered, stretched John's ass so much to kind of make up his mind. He was like, no, I'm adamant on ballot, and that's it. But we had to convince him. I had to rile up the Jambone Pictures internship team. I even had to hire an intern from Quinnipiac University in Hamden, Connecticut, who sounded just like MJF. He sounded just like, I said, okay, this guy sounds just like MJF. He's a hotshot hockey player. He wasn't even a wrestling fan, but he sounded just like MJF. So, okay, MJF roughs people up. We're going to have this guy rough John up so John can get his acting guy. So he put these things to John and said, listen, this is a professional production here. What the hell are you giving me over here? I mean, he went off on a tangent. I'm like, I'm loving this because John is going to eventually give in.
Go.
So 3 interns, we all ganged up, but finally he said, okay, he gave in. And John raised the bar with his talent. He did amazing things. He did better than ever. And sometimes we have it in us, but we get so, and John works multiple jobs. He has a successful career in other things in marketing. So, sometimes we can't always come to terms with things that we're still getting to know or we're coming to terms with. So, he was amazing. And we did one shoot in Yonkers, New York. And we added this all in with the archive footage. And then we did another shoot at the ECPW Wrestling School in Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, owned by Gino Caruso. So we got to shoot stuff in there. And it was just amazing. And I'm so happy that, John gave into this and just finally was convinced and we went through hell. I mean, look, I lost some of my hair as a result of it. I went through so much hell. So we went through hell and back, and look at the Match to Kill now. We won Best Short Documentary from the Bocas Film Festival in Florida. We outlasted 5 other documentaries. The movie's available on Fawsome.tv. It's available on PickRelay.com. It's available on Stash TV. You have to through the Amazon Fire app. The trailer that John put together is amazing, amazing, amazing. Even people are liking it. Nick Mitchell from Pure Vanguard Wrestling, the referee, says the trailer is awesome. So people are digging it. People are like, and people, more now, little by little, more and more people are coming to terms with this movie. Um, so it's just, but yeah, it's just amazing how I've been so persistent with John because I believe in him, and he has an extensive background in entertainment law, and I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from him. Um, when it comes to corporate stuff, corporate ethics, things like that. Learned a lot from him, and what type of contracts to set up. He's very clever when it comes to what contracts to set up. But he's very, very more the subtle guy in our relationship, and I'm trying to be a little more subtle too in certain aspects. But he's more the subtle to a point guy. Me, I've been, and I'm sure there's times he probably told his wife, "I cannot take Justin today. I want to strangle him. He's pissing me off so much." Because I would get so much of a hard ass so much here, but um, he's put peace in me. He's put peace in me to um, kind of know how to chill and know how that certain things you can't be flying off a handle. You can't be, because I was doing that in the early stages here. Um, so it's a little different now. Our relationship is better. Relationship is more constructive. It's more negotiable. So it has been a learning experience, and yeah, just a lot of growth. And you need to work for people that you need to grow in, and you have to also understand that spiritually, God, and your guardian angels put you in a situation here, and you have to analyze, why am I in this situation? Why? And then there's times you want to get out of it, but you can't. Analyze the situation. It's room for growth, and you have to deal with it, regardless if you love it or you hate it.
Right. Yeah, and it's great you said that because it's always great when friendships, working partnerships mature, right? There's always those growing pains. The old adage is that everything in life happens for a reason.
Yeah.
But my own personal philosophy is that everything happens in life for three reasons. The first being something very direct on you, something that you're going to learn from the situation, especially if it's a negative situation. You're going to learn something directly that about yourself, something you didn't know before. The second piece is that you learn something about the world, right? Because when you go through something, you're normally not, it's not, you're not in a bubble. You're normally not by yourself, and even if something is maybe happening just to you, it marginally speaking can reshape the way you look at the world, right?
Oh yeah.
But
Oh
that second part is really like, maybe you learn who you're real. Maybe something really bad happens. You lose someone, and you find out who a good friend is, who's going to be there for you.
exactly.
Maybe you lose someone, and you realize, man, I need to get some friends because nobody's here for me. Whatever it is, but that's the second piece. And the third piece for me, the third one that you always learn, in my opinion, is something that is truly intrinsic, something that you can never explain. Doesn't matter how many words that you find in any language, in any dictionary across the world, you could be multilingual and know every language. There's no way that you're going to be able to put that experience completely into words and be able to, you can say what it means to you out loud, but the other person is never going to be able to understand that because they've never been through it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I could sit here all day and talk to people about what it was like for me to go through basic training in Fort Knox, Kentucky. What it was like to have 3, 4, 5 drill sergeants, cadre, screaming in my face every day, run faster, jump higher, blah, 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 blah. But if you've never seen that, you can't explain it. Same thing with like kids. I got 3 beautiful children. I love my children. But I tell that to people, I'm like, listen, you can have as many dogs as you want. Until your first child's born, you got no clue, buddy. I'm sorry. You could babysit all day. You could do whatever you want to do. You could whatever. But until you get that kid in your hands, all right, maybe, obviously adoption's different, guys. Let's not get crazy. But like, I've had so many people like, oh, well, I have a cat. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Because if you forget to, like, you could leave your cat at home for a day and go to work. I can't just leave an infant in the house by itself with a bowl of food. That's not how this works, okay? It's not the same level of responsibility, folks. So I totally see where you're coming with that. And you know, I also completely agree with you when you talk about the like the marketing, because a lot of what I do was in the early stages of this whole channel and everything, was literally just learning to fill in the gaps, because there are so many wrestling promotions in New England especially, and a lot of them, there are some that do, and once again, I don't want to throw shade to people because I understand that some people have lives and maybe they don't have the money or the time to do it, but there are some that do pretty good marketing for themselves, and some almost heavily rely on the talent and don't do any marketing whatsoever. And I realized, hey, maybe very easily I could go to some of these places and almost be the damn marketing team for them. Myself, I eventually do want to get in the business. So this is kind of like a warm up, for to be honest. Not to mention just the podcast. I've been doing podcasts for a very long time. This is not my first podcast. Technically, my third podcast at this point. This one's a lot more fun, I would say, than the first one was. Um, the second one, I'm kind of like a ghost writer on this other podcast that somebody does, and it's a lot of fun. He interviews a lot of really cool people, but yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about the whole idea of the production side. And then being someone who went to film school, you see how I'm sorry, it doesn't matter how good your movie is, if you're not marketing it appropriately, nobody will see it. That's it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's genius that you guys have it in so many wonderful places. So, and speaking of that, the Match to Kill dives into the intense real life rivalry between Gia Savitz and Frankie Firestarter. All right. How would you describe the heart of the story, and why does it resonate so strongly as a tale of resilience and perseverance against all odds, in your opinion?
Um, it's a very the story to me, perseverance and against all odds. It's very hard to put that into words because we have so many. The movie is kind of like there is perseverance, but there's kind of like the perseverance kind of doesn't always like stay. It's kind of like you persevere, you're resilient, you're coming back, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now you're back down again, maybe a week later. And I felt like that with my wrestling career. I felt like, okay, I think I'm fine, and then I'm not. Um, but I think with this film, the best way to put it is that it has a lot of stuff with the family. A handful of things of the family. If it weren't for my family, I wouldn't have gotten interested in professional wrestling. My family is very charismatic, very over the top, a bunch of entertainers. They're athletes, you name it. They tried it. They've done it. They tried to do it. They've been through a lot of stuff here. But we're like a wrestling family. I have martial artists in my family. I have a cousin that was going for her black belt right around the time of 14 years old. While I started out in backyard wrestling, and I only did like a little amateur wrestling club, my cousin Gianni was a high school wrestler on a team, and this is my first cousins once removed that came after me. So my family has a very eclectic array of things, more than they think. They're more than and they rev me up to get interested in wrestling because they can really rev you up in a way that's kind of bullyish, but I think it's bullyish in a good way. And what that did was that drove me to turn on Hulk Hogan. Piper, then WWF led me to NWA, led me to AWA, led me to Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. And what was interesting about Glow was that my mother told me, don't watch it. The women are tough. They're scary. Put on the men. So she's trying to say that women are tougher than men. So all this stuff, so there's that component in the documentary where there's the family stuff. There's me on the indie circuit going through my ups and downs, but the ups, those things here. Um, but as far as perseverance and as far as coming back, and I would say that the experience with Frankie Firestarter, the arch nemesis I encounter, I look, I think that that changed me throughout my career. Frankie called on a radio show I was on, WVOX, which that scene is in the documentary, WVOX Radio in New Rochelle, New York. That did a lot to me, my family, everything. That changed me. So while the guy I was telling you about who tried to sue me didn't do enough, um, Frankie did a lot of changes, and some metamorphosis had to be done here, and this had to come in. This had to come in here. So there was red boas quite a bit, and then this got put on here, and people throughout that had to witness this guy with a hat. Nelson Torres, the owner of WTF. We did a Too Hot to Handle episode on his show. We did wrestling talk shows around the actual wrestling shows. And I don't want to say what was on the show. I mean, I was afraid that we were going to get death threats. This is just how much Frankie and Nelson was like, no, man, I'm not. And he's from New York City. And he's been through, a lot of shit down there, because there's always something unpredictable going down there. But God bless him. And Nelson, I love Nelson no matter what. God bless Nelson for, also putting up with me and just putting up with all the stuff here and always persevering. But this was upsetting, this episode. Frankie took a toll on me. Now you can see one of the episodes where Frankie calls into WTF TV Live. Calls in. I wasn't wearing this at the time. He calls in and gives me shit. The guy stayed up till 11:30 at night to give me a phone call. Talk about a guy that I don't know. I don't know what the hell the guy's trying to pull. But it's so what's unique about this, and I'm not trying to kind of like rewrite your question or do any of that. I'm just trying to give you the things that your question is very, very accurate, of course, which is because there is things, but for a broader sense, it just seems like things kind of get into a reverse psychological, kind of like reverse psychology in some way, in some unique way. Kind of like you're assuming that, Frankie's going to change me and make me a little more like, kind of like a gentle Marion, like Madam Librarian from the Music Man type character. But that's not what happened. While I'm talking about being in peaceful relations corporate wise with John, when it comes to thinking about Frankie and all these other past events in the wrestling business, it kind of makes me turn into someone that I don't want to see, but sometimes you guys in the wrestling business have to see it.
Right. Sometimes you got to get down to business.
Yeah, so that's why people have to see this documentary. People have to watch it in the wrestling business, have to see it, because this is very, very true to the heart, dear to the heart. And especially young people today, I'm seeing a lot of young people that aren't even wrestling fans that are acting like wrestlers. That are coming in public places acting like wrestlers. I mean, even Gino Caruso's school had a lot of students. Right before we did the second shoot, Gino Caruso's school had a lot of students that morning before we did the set. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Because there were times, sorry, Gino, to say this, I love you. There were times where Gino may have had a less amount of students, but then I'm all of a sudden seeing this influx of, wow, I couldn't even walk in that school. This is how much we're, and I'm not criticizing Gino's school. I'm trying to say, how I'm trying to interpret this. We're on the verge of a boom period.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah, I see where you're going. The idea is that, I mean, it really is coming back in the zeitgeist, right? I mean, wrestling was so huge in the 90s, early 2000s. It did, I mean, the numbers don't lie, right? It really fell off the map for a while. We weren't having the same 10 million people who were watching wrestling every Monday night. But, I mean, realistically speaking, since Triple H took over the WWE and AEW came into the mix and they kind of re-sparked a little bit of a war, I feel like it's been slowly upticking back and forth. And now, with Cody switching over to the WWE, and he being the super hot baby face of the past couple of years. It's just I feel like it's back. I mean, never like even inside the idea like there's cosplayers, right? There's the cosplayers who go to Comic Cons, and instead of being dressed up as like Batman, they're dressed up as AJ Styles, right? That's not something that happened really 20 years ago. That's not something, even when in the I mean, they might have put on the T-shirt, but there really wasn't that same kind of fandom where people were doing those obsessive things. Or now New York's got the Subway series where they're like Subway Mania. They're like wrestling in the subway and beating the tar out of each other, and they're all dressed as their
Yeah,
favorite guy.
yeah.
What is this, man? I mean,
You know,
no shame, but still,
it's funny you're mentioning New York because this movie is New York based. Frankie uh came in the picture when more I was doing more wrestling stuff in New York. So it's interesting you mentioned New York is becoming more of a hotbed for professional wrestling again on the indies. And I just heard from I'm sorry, Hollywood DeVille. That's his wrestling, Hollywood Coupe DeVille, who's an up and coming guy. I just heard from him on Facebook, and we started talking for the first time because I messaged him on Facebook. So we chat, and he's really into his stuff. And I told him, your match suspended the disbelief for me against Jay Hostel. You got a lot of other guys in New York, like Lee Jackson, who has a MMA boxing background, kickboxing, and he even puts training. He trains at the CKO kickboxing gym, which is a franchise gym. I look more into that, and he does that in the Bronx, and it's amazing what he does. He's hard hitting. He's a smaller guy, but his kicks are vicious. You don't want to f with him. And you got things like that. And New York has a lot of, and I'm from New York, and John's from New York. It has a variety of emotions to work with, and for people that live in the city area like New York City, and it's good. Pro wrestling is good for them, and you got some of the best personalities that come out of New York. But I also like the crossover that New York guys are doing. Like a guy that worked with Mel Sanchez does the crossover from pro wrestling to Muay Thai, kickboxing, MMA. I've known Mel for quite a bit. But yeah, then you got World Wrestling Extreme is in New York. They're building a hot and heavy a hot and heavy rapport. It's interesting stuff what's going on. So yeah, the movie is New York based predominantly. That's where the story is. That's the basis, and then you have the other revolving sounds in other areas from the indie circuit that are just revolving all around the base location of that. But I may have to wear this hat for the rest of the thing here because now we're touching up on the match to kill, and we're touching
Right.
on all this other stuff from the past here. And but just want to let everyone know watching this Black Fedora hat, it ain't going anywhere.
There you go. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. The Northeast itself is a real hub for professional wrestling. I think that, I say it all the time that we as wrestling fans right now over in this neck of the woods are spoiled.
Yeah,
We have so much choice. There are so many, there it is a buffet. It is a cornucopia. We have so many
yeah.
different wrestling promotions going off, and there's so many. I mean, in New England last night we had Limitless Wrestling up in Maine. They had MJF there
Was
with
that
the
Alec Price and Jordan
yeah,
Oliver? They just got
exactly.
signed,
Yep,
right?
they
Okay.
just got signed.
Yep.
They had the WWE ID Women's Champion Laney Luck, Donovan Dijak, who he was just on the
Oh
podcast.
yeah, I saw that.
It just came that it actually the full episode's out today, September, Jesus Christ. Saturday, January 17th. This is gonna drop, obviously in a week or so from now. But Donovan Dijak was on the podcast. He's actually wrestling for his Rebel Spirit Pro. He's defending his other title tonight. But we went to a chaotic wrestling show, watched Armani Chaos win the skinny weight champion, I should say. There's BST, Blood, Sweat, Tears. They had it every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's like 97 different places in New England and New York, and I dare I say even Pennsylvania. And New Jersey. There's a couple. Shout out to a couple of places down in New Jersey. They are always wrestling in old malls and stuff. And every once in a while they'll be like, "Hey man, we like your stuff." I'm like, "Listen, one of these days I'm gonna go down to New Jersey and watch some wrestling in a mall. It'll be wild." But yeah, it's a great time to be a wrestling fan. That's the best way I can put it.
And I'm digging that Wrestling Open. Jake Gray, who you had on here,
Yeah,
Julius does it, and Eric
Julius.
Chacha.
So
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, those guys are Devious Cross. Who else? Brando Lee. I was watching. Yeah, now I'm getting more into watching the Wrestling Open.
yeah. Shout out to I Black Jack. He was on the podcast with us, and he just did his first WWE tryout this past week. So we actually had a video drop last night. I made it special just for Jack because he's like, I feel like he's a buddy of mine now. Where Donovan Dijak himself said that he thinks I Black Jack is the future of wrestling in Worcester, Massachusetts. So I don't. That's a pretty good praise in my opinion. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah, we
get
got so many. Yeah, so many people, so many futures. I said to myself before I came on here, I didn't want to be um too specific on what names I think are the future, and I don't
right,
want to say that right now, but because I've made a vow, because if I want to get more stuff in outside of the match to kill, I want to make sure I try to remain neutral, because I feel like everyone can step it up. My belief is everyone can step it up if you stay healthy. I took Supernova Wrestling, the way Adam Saint was running, had this idea for Supernova Wrestling. I was going to even say, if I'm head writer, I was going to say, "But we got to stress other stuff here. Let's treat this even more seriously. Let's make sure, um, people stay healthy. No going to the bar after." This is what I was thinking, because the way he was talking about it was kind of like, okay, I want this to be, he was passionate about it. So I said, okay, well, let's make everyone have more of an athletic mindset. Don't go to the bar after. Don't do any of this stuff. Don't go drinking. Don't be making sure, but again, it sounds like, what? You're thinking that of an indie promotion? But the way he was talking about it, it's great if he's talking about it. God bless him. This is what was coming out of me. And I think it's very crucial in order for everyone to be on board to ascend to levels they never imagined, or whatever goals they think they can achieve, whatever it is here. Health is very important. Peace of mind is very important. Put the heavy burdens of anger aside, because that's going to just drag you down. You want to get passionate on the mic, you save it for the ring. Don't do it, don't do it at your job. I'm sorry, your day job. My apologies. That's
right.
about World Indie
No,
Wrestling.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant. Don't.
That's the way. That's what it is. Has to be.
Right, right. And I guess I should say, speaking of the Open, for anybody watching this, TJ Crawford's going to be on the podcast in about 2 weeks. So he's going to be filming with me on this coming Wednesday, but it's going to drop from 2 weeks from when this drops, is what I should say. Wrestling Open for sure. But yeah, I agree with you. Keep the if it's stuck in your mind and you're at your day job, write it down. I don't know what to tell you. Go busting out a great promo on a bunch of randos that have never seen wrestling a day in their life. Probably not going to work out for you. Save it. Save that passion for the ring, my friend. Speaking of passions, though, and this is something, and maybe it's been updated because I feel like I might have seen something. The match to kill has already generated a bunch of buzz, of course. Submitted to 12 festivals, accepted into 5. Did you get another one? Did I see about another one, or was I mistaken?
Yeah, I think that was it. I thought maybe John was saying that too. I'm not exactly sure.
Oh, okay.
We're still trying to do our best to just get it out there.
Of
Whatever
course.
the circumstances are. Yeah.
And as we said, it took home the best short documentary at the Bocas Film Festival. What has that level of recognition meant to you? And I mean, because this, it's your story, of course. And how has it helped, spread your story further?
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if John wants me to say this, but I'm not totally satisfied with an award. Even if someone said to us, "Well, you're up for an Oscar," and and against all these other movies, yeah, and we won best, and we won that award at the Academy Awards, I would still not be satisfied. There's only one thing that has to make me satisfied. I don't know how John feels, but this is how I'm feeling. What has to do it is that I still want some sort of redemption from the past, and I'm not meaning this in like a gangster thug life type way here. What I'm trying to refer to is that there's some missing pieces to the puzzle. There's some voids that have to get filled here, and there's still work to be done. We've only just begun, and I have to go and wake up early in the morning before I go to my day job and feel like something is missing. Something is still missing, So I know I also do have regrets over telling Adam Saint and Supernova Wrestling that I had to take care of some other stuff for Jambone, because I feel like there was something that was more built up from there, but I had to do what I had to do. But I still feel like a award for Best Short Documentary wouldn't satisfy me. What would satisfy me for Justin Ciardullo, Gia Savitz, whatever, is more closure with other people in the wrestling business and more extended relationships with other people. That's more on my end, though. As far as John and I are concerned, we could say that's in there too. But also, I want to see John go out there further too, in other ways too, and extend himself further out there too, and make new relationships of all walks of life too. I feel like this is John's calling more. John's done a lot. John's a very intelligent, smart guy. Been, worked in entertainment law as an attorney, lawyer. He's kind of like I look at him as like my modern day Nick Lambros, who ran WCW, was executive vice president with Bischoff. I kind of look at him as that type of guy with me. He's like that modern who knows the contracts, and Nick Lambros was a respectable guy in Turner, from what I was hearing. I want to see that. What has to really, I think, satisfy both him and I with all this is that more people come with us. We have more gatherings with other people. We build new relationships with people all around the world. So a Best Short Documentary, I mean, that's great and all, but it just doesn't do, I don't think it just doesn't do enough. It doesn't satisfy me enough. Maybe John's okay, but I think maybe John feels okay about it now, maybe, but I think really at the end of the day, I think that it's best that we want more, something to grow more than just an award. It's like as if I'm, a blonde bombshell and I won Miss America. Now, again, to me, I take pride in a woman. The woman to me is a goddess. I worship the woman. So to me, I'm like, I see Miss America. Listen, I know a woman could achieve much greater things than just a Miss America beauty pageant. So to me, it's like as if I just won Miss America, or Miss Universe. That's how I feel about that.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes total sense to me, right?
Yeah.
It's nice to get awards. It's nice to get the accolades.
Yeah.
But you're hungry for more, and you're willing to put in the work to get to that next step. And it's like, hey, you went out, you created this project. You guys had a vision together, and you made it happen. And you've gotten to this step in it, but you're like, yeah, well, the ladder's not done yet. The ladder's not done. We got to those parts in the ladder, and it's pretty cool, but it's not the top. We got to keep going. So that's a total respectable and logical conclusion that that anyone should really draw, right? Because it's not like, I mean, obviously if I were to die tomorrow, it's like, oh, maybe I should have done a few more things. But at the same time, it's like, I got as high as I could get in the time I had. So that's what you got to do, right? You got to do the best what you can with the time and the resources that you have with yourself. So I love that idea of just, you're still going and you're so passionate and you seem like you got plenty left in the furnace, as they say, down in the basement. You got more to go. So it's wonderful to hear. To be quite frank, I love it. So, and maybe I want to make sure I have these right, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, of course. But so the Match to Kill streaming on platforms like Slash TV, Fossum, and the new Relay service,
Yeah, it's a Stash TV through Amazon Fire.
Amazon
And
Fire.
then there's the Relay. The new Relay is a new streaming service, which I believe is $4.99 a month. Should I try to share the pages for you, the ones I have over here, or should I share that here on the podcast?
Yeah, if you want to send them over, and then I'll just put them out when I put this out. I'll put them out with people so they can check it out for sure.
All right.
Whatever you are comfortable with me sharing with people, send it over. I'll make sure everybody, I'll put it everywhere I put things, I should say.
All right, so I'll email it to you on a separate, yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, but yeah, so I know the website, yeah, so it's the Relay app. I think that's pickrelay.com, fawsome.tv, fawsome.tv, and Stash TV through Amazon Fire. And we want to try to get more outlets out there. This movie, to me, and I'm not going to give away the ending, I'm not going to give away everything, but I feel like it sets for me, it kind of, people are going to have a lot of questions with this movie. They're going to be wondering, okay, they're going to say who, what, when, where, how, whatever they're going to say here. For me personally, I feel like it sets the tone of what could be happening here. It sets the tone of it's like a lot of it's also throwbacks to the industry of years ago too. It sets to me, it sets the tone for. And I've been watching other documentaries recently. I watched David Hero's documentary, which I really enjoyed. David Hero seems like a great guy. From what he seems like a real teddy bear, and you really fall in love with him. You really can fall in love with him very, very easily when you watch this thing. And I was like really feeling something for him, just in so many levels. I think he's a terrific guy, and I wish I worked for a guy like that years ago. That's how sweet this guy, from what I'm watching. And his son Cal Hero, I think looks like a phenomenal young man. He raised him well. Cal is tearing it up all over the indie scene. I think is the OVW champion, or in the documentary, I know they mentioned him as the OVW champion. I mean, he's achieving a lot of stuff. So that documentary was very, very unique. But with our film, it's very different. It sets a lot of tones here. People are going to ask a lot of questions as to what is really happening here. This to me, this is not an indie wrestling, pro wrestling documentary you could take lightly. Where you could say, okay, well, this is just some like festival thing, or what these guys are doing, and it looks cool, but I don't know what. No, I would say when you watch this thing, you're going to be asking yourself a lot of questions. And I think indie wrestling people, pro wrestling people, all around the world need to take notice of this film, because you cannot, and I'm going to repeat this, not. And I'm wearing the black fedora hat, so I'm going to say it with passion here. You cannot take this lightly. And this is just like I used to say, this movie is the real world. Face it, take it, and don't you ever forget it, and I guarantee it.
There you go. Put the zip on it. Put the little gusto in there. I love it. Always got to love passion on the Hype Podcast for sure. Yeah. And speaking of gusto, let's be honest. The trailer is pretty intense, right? It captures it really just gets your attention. Yeah. And it really teases the story and hooks people into watching the full thing. Do you agree with that statement? How do you feel about the trailer?
The trailer, I think, is just very it's very, very unique, and it just I like the fact that it's just very. John got very professional with it, like amazing stuff. Very, very professional with it, because it looks like big time stuff. It looks like a WWE type thing the way the trailer was put together. And I don't want to always say WWE. We could put let's just say big time stuff, because we got a lot of even indie people are putting some great shit together.
Right.
I even just saw some AML stuff between Joey Janela and George South. And I'm like, this is an indie company, and just George South looked amazing for his age. And I'm like, they had this retirement angle. I was watching the promo before our here together. So I don't want to say that's very, very, but I'm just saying, like, that's been the standard that we always recognize. Oh, this is an edit that we, whatever. But it's just like, it just looked like very big time stuff. Looked like very much like we're here. We're taking a stand here. John's taking a stand here. Justin Ciardullo, Gia Savitz taking a stand here. Frankie Firestarter is taking a stand here. Jambone Pictures. And there could be some other people behind the curtains over here pile driving their way in some sort of unique way that you don't even know about. So it's very, very unique. So this movie cannot be taken lightly. And I don't think people should just watch it and just say, well, it was nice and all, but now I'm going to throw it in the trash kind of mentality. No, you cannot do that. Watch it, take in every single type of emotion, relate it to wrestling, but relate it to also events around the world. Because as we're seeing this, movie, as John and I were putting this thing together, and as we're analyzing it, as everything is put together and it's been released, we're saying, this could be related to modern day society, especially for the Gen Zers out there.
Man, that is a powerful statement to say, my friend. I mean, I definitely agree with you on the idea
Yeah.
that the trailer really captivated. Genuinely, we had talked on the phone briefly, and then you actually emailed a bunch of stuff over. So I watched the trailer. I was literally sitting outside of a show waiting to get into the show, and we watched the trailer, and I was like, "Oh shit, I gotta see this." Like, I was like, I can't see it till like Tuesday. I think it was a Friday night, and it's like I'm not gonna have time to watch this until like Tuesday. But I watched it as soon as humanly possible because there's just like I'm not sure if I know what the hell's going on, but I want to find out what the hell's going on. And once again, no spoilers here, folks, but go watch it immediately. That's all I'm gonna say. That's it. That's all that should be said at this point. So you talked earlier about the ballad of Gia and Frankie. And there's an expanded narrative with that companion comic book. All right, which launched along with all of this. How, in your opinion, how does that comic complement the documentary, and what made it such a cool way to connect to even more fans?
Well, the comic book is very, very unique, and um, we it was definitely a team effort. I mean, I'm not trying to boast about this, but I'm actually the primary writer of the comic book. You know, if but we of course we had to have of course John had to put the vision together and how he wanted things lay out, and I had to take it from there. And then of course John had to make the final edits. Patrick Hickey made the final edits too, who's the CEO of Legacy Comics, and then we had the artist too, Josh Adams. So again, not trying to say, "Oh, I'm primary writer." No, I'm just saying that just to be honest of what had to happen. But again, who set the tone for me to write primarily was John had to set it. Without John, I couldn't just. But at the same time, what drove me so deeply. Now I'm going to be specific about the primary writing. So deeply to write it like this was that I had to go into a dark spot. And as I said before John got in touch with me, I had to spend time in a dark spot to make the decision to start working on things to plant the seeds for something special in wrestling. I had to go to a dark spot and see a place that I wasn't supposed to be in. I had to open up, and the people may say, "What are you out of your mind? Are you delusional or something? The way you're describing this, what is going on here?" No, I had to open up a forbidden door here. Yeah, I know everyone loves to use that term loosely, right? Forbidden door, but this is a different type of forbidden door here.
Exactly.
I had to open up a forbidden door, and just be in a place that I shouldn't have been in, but I had to go in, and I had to spend 5 years and 5 months in that place to learn that anything is possible in life. I had to learn in that place that, a woman is very special, has a very special place in this world. And you have to make sure that you owe that woman your deep respect and how she has to be communicated with at all times. And, and that your woman could be your hero, but at the end of the day, you have to be her hero too. So I had to learn that. I also had to learn one other thing too that really took me off guard, that age is just a number.
Yeah,
Age is just a number.
you're not wrong. I know some like 45-year-olds that act like six. So
Yeah, yeah. I had to
people are
learn
like,
that age.
oh,
Yeah,
like, oh.
I had to learn that age is just a number. And this place I had to go to and spend time to and just chill out for 5 years and 5 months. Quite frankly, it was just looked like you were in a, it was just too unreal. Too unreal. If it weren't for that place, you wouldn't see me with the hat on like this so much. I mean, you have Frankie, I know, and I said mention Frankie too. But that place deep down got me so deeply invested in life, invested in what's out there and how we have to look at the world and how we must at all times embrace the real world. Because I think as Gia Savitz, before I didn't embrace the real world, but finally when I went to that place for 5 years and 5 months, I realized that now you must embrace wholeheartedly the real world. And it just, and that's how, yeah. And as a result of that, it's a lot to just a lot. I'm speechless right now because I'm giving you everything I can. And now I'm really, really knocked out now, but that's just what is going on here. And just, that's really kind of drove me so much to get so invested in the comic book. And I felt myself lose myself to the
Right.
point where I became that location I spent 5 years and 5 months in. I became that location. I became those people that I had to encounter in there, to the point where I would even bring those people to my day job and scare my boss in her office. Well, and I love that woman, by the way. I love that woman dearly, by the way. And I hope she's listening. Hey, Rebecca. Anyhow, so I love that woman dearly, by the way. But I scared her because I got so invested because because I was a concierge for her. So I got so invested in this story, and I felt the characters that I was walking like this because I felt so powerful in that moment. So I had to take that whole location, the darkness, the things like that, with a little bit of inspiration from Firefly Funhouse, by the way. That's probably why it always gets to me. And I had to really, really it drove me so much to really write that comic book. I remember going into the coffee shop and I would just lose myself. I would just get lost. And I would not become Justin that started the interview right now. I'd become just like this, just get lost. And everything, it just was amazing. And the tone was amazing. And everyone got so caught up. John was loving it. John was getting so into it. Patrick Hickey and I had our ups and downs, but I love Patrick anyway. Patrick is just so passionate about comics that, I had to get, smacked around a bit just in a playful way, and he straightened me out. And yeah, I love Patrick. Patrick gets so invested and so into it. Same with Josh Adams. And then we had Valentin Quinones, who did the variant cover of the comic books. We have 3 covers. And definitely go to www.legacycomics.com and get your copy. We got 3 covers, physical and digital, but we have also a Frankie cover, which is only in digital, by the way, though. And just so while I had to use that location to drive me into oblivion, so did the other guys had to embrace that location. They had no choice. Maybe that's what, that's why Patrick maybe went a little haywire with me. What do you expect? Sorry, Patrick. But yeah, but when you watch the Match to Kill, now I'm taking you to Match to Kill because I want to get further into that because I feel like I touched up on the comic book. Definitely buy it. And there's also indie wrestling stuff from my past in there. There's my family, my childhood upbringing, and of course you see Frankie. But then we have to go into TMTK because I want to talk about the location that I spent time in that drove me to write the comic book. And you see that location speak through me in the Match to Kill. When you see that passion, when you see that adrenaline rush, you see the darkness and the location that when we shot that thing, John had to cut the tape and say, hold on, let's hold on for a second here. He felt the location speaking, the events of that location, the entities, the people I met, the darkness, just the personalities in there just speak through me that John got a little bit terror-stricken that he had to cut the tape. Pam Blanco Productions, who was assisting with us on that first day of the shoot, had to kind of one guy was like, and I had to say, am I offending you? Am I offending you? And he's like, no, I'm fine. Okay, you sure? Okay, I just don't want to hurt you. But I could tell he was like, I mean, and that's how crazy this was. And then we're in Yonkers, New York. And Yonkers, New York is, never say die attitude. I love the city of Yonkers. My family's from Yonkers. I grew up in Yonkers for a part of my time. And when I'm in Yonkers, New York, I feel the energy of Yonkers. And I know those people go through hard times, and their mentality is I'm in hard times. I got a nickel in my pocket, and I got to rise to the occasion. So when you had that inspiration there too, all that stuff, wham, wham, just really drove me uh, into oblivion. And so that inspiration, all that stuff, the comic book writing went into the Match to Kill. And I think the comic book complements the Match to Kill better than the comic book complementing the ballad film we had out. So definitely watch the movie, and you got to buy the comic book. You definitely got to buy the comic book. It's more like a promotional tool, but it's very philosophical. Getting into more of a reality and getting into all these things here. Definitely buy it. We also have the wrestling video game. What is it called again? It's a wrestling video game. I think that Tommy Dreamer did. We had them sponsoring. Tommy Dreamer was in there. It has legends and new indie guys in there. Not Tony Cini's game, another game. They're sponsoring us. They're sponsoring the comic book. So you see there and there. So they were on board too. They believed in us. So they said, we're going to sponsor these guys. And Legacy Comics, Patrick Hickey is a diehard wrestling fan. Did stuff in wrestling business, ring announcing, I think, too. He's all over the map with wrestling, loves wrestling. So if he didn't believe in us, and he lives for wrestling so much that he takes it so seriously that if he thought we were a bona fide joke, that he would say, I'm not giving these guys anything. I am not letting these guys in. So when you have Patrick Hickey with that philosophy, then I would say, yeah, you should think about this. Definitely check out this comic book. Definitely read it. We're working very hard for wrestling people, entertainment people all around the world here. We want this comic book will be a collector's item here, because guess what? We're working very, very hard, and we ain't stopping anytime soon.
Here we go. You heard it from the man. Go get your comic book now. I love the passion. I also love how you're talking about Yonkers. That's the same way I feel about when I go home to the fighting city, Mill City of Lowell, Massachusetts. Anytime I'm in there, I'm like, listen, this is where I grew up. I went through some stuff here. I know how these people are. And you just get that energy that comes from it, right? It's overwhelming, and it latches onto you, and you're like, I'm like, let's go. Let's effing go, people. Like, I felt that last night. We went to Chaotic Wrestling. That was in Lowell, Massachusetts. And anytime I'm there and they're like, come on, Lowell, can't you do better than that? I'm like, of course we can. You're just screaming your head off like a maniac. I don't want to break the thing right now, but I definitely I felt that passion running through there. And I was thinking, I have it here, but even evolving it here on the spot, from a marketing promoting standpoint, would you guys, ever go to maybe a Comic-Con, or there's horror film comic whatever festivals, horror cons, there's wrestle cons, there's even taking this stuff and going to maybe like a local indie promotion and setting up a table and selling that type of stuff. Would that ever be a thing you guys could do?
Yeah, we are in talks with people regarding that. I had to meet with some people regarding that recently. We're still trying to work all that out here. We are considering that option. Definitely are considering that option. We're considering, yeah, so definitely that's something to think about. It would be nice to give New York another shot here and go back to New York. I am trying to reconnect with some old Connecticut buddies. I'm sorry, New York wrestling buddies of mine, and then making new. As I said, I talked a bit to Hollywood DeVille throughout the past few days, and and then Lee Jackson. I want to definitely meet with him eventually too. New guy I never met before, but he's making his mark. Has that MMA, as I said, the MMA thing. New York is definitely a thing. Making more relationships in New York is definitely. I miss New York. I'm living in Connecticut, but I feel like since I've been in Connecticut since 2022, I feel like mentally I'm in New York. And even my day job is like New York. You wouldn't even think you're in Connecticut, but the personalities I have to deal with them there. So it's like, sometimes I feel like, am I really in Connecticut? Because there's a beautiful woman I still really care for who lives here in Connecticut, and I've been waiting for her, hopefully to come back. You see, I'm old-fashioned with love, so I feel like I can't just force. I have to wait for everything for myself to feel better and see what the. So I've been waiting 3 years.
Wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, so I'm saying maybe I'm in Connecticut. I gotta wait for her because I feel like I'm still stuck in New York. So New York is definitely a thing here. Uh, and when I see New York going through its hardships, and because I see that on social media, that really pisses me off. That pisses me
Yeah.
off for all the residents involved here. That really pisses me off when I see that. I mean, you should see, So, but it'd be nice to do some stuff in New York. Try to work with some guys here. I know like promotions like WWX are getting themselves out there. It's nice to see that Hollywood DeVille has a company called All Star Championship Wrestling. I see Nelson Torres as WTF is getting has raised the bar a bit. I'm happy to see Nelson is doing some good things. And then we have also Fatal Wrestling Federation is going up there. So you got some guys that are spending quite a bit of time in the Hoffman Street WWX school, but they're really raising the bar. Um, and hope maybe doing the big event again, like which I haven't done in a while. Traveling all around, but traveling around the world, traveling around the country. But I will admit, I'm in New England, and I'm also liking the New England wrestling scene. I made some connections at that S&W show. Even I had Tucker, Tucker Rimrold, I think his name was Tucker Rimrold. He's a buddy of Fly Nye Noriega. So I'm friends with him. Fly Nye's a great guy. Connected with Fly Nye, New England standout. Cue the Pit. Uh, I know he's a referee all throughout New England. So I think I'm also getting to know the New England scene a bit. That it's like I don't know if I'm going to go back. I don't know if New York is going to be end all, end all. I think
Right.
overall to put it all together, it would just be best to stay in my location in Connecticut, but try to expand and go all around the world with this thing. If John and I have to travel to England, to the UK, we'll go to the UK. There's hustle wrestling. And I love
I
European
think,
wrestling. European wrestling, I think, is great. I love European
yeah.
wrestling, and I
Yeah.
love to
No,
see, and I love to
really
see
good stuff.
real tough guys. I love to see guys and girls being women. I'm sorry, women being tough. And I also love Stardom in Japan. Love Stardom.
Oh yeah, yeah. Stardom.
Love Stardom.
I'm definitely a subscriber to the New Japan library, and I know we're coming up on season where we're gonna start getting the G1 climax and the Stardom. I lost the name of it. Sue me, I guess. I can't remember the name of the Stardom has their own tournament as well, and it's really good. Same thing with like over the last week or so, I've been seeing a lot about what's her Rain Leverkusen, who is the women's progress champion. She just had a
Oh,
WWE.
oh, 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 yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
She's tough
she's the
stuff. Yeah,
Maiden of Metal,
yeah.
right?
Her promos are shit.
Her
She's
promos
dope. Yeah,
are something else. I'm like, all right, just this woman's like, nothing wrong with the. She's like, metal will never ever die, baby. Like, okay, I like this. I keep an eye on one of my favorites is Simon Miller. Simon Miller from What Culture. He also wrestles as a professional, and so I keep an eye on when he's doing stuff as well. So there's a lot of that strong style, that British strong style over there is pretty phenomenal. I totally get what you're saying. And I mean, down in Connecticut, there's a lot of wrestling promotions. I don't get to see them very often
yeah.
during this time of the year because literally snowing outside. I don't want to drive 4 hours in this crap. But there's plenty of really good guys that are down there in Connecticut that I'm always like, all right, once the weather is better, I'm gonna have to start coming down to that neck of the woods and checking that out. Um, but yeah, very. Yeah, I love the passion. I just like when after I've watched it and I see how it's the portfolio, so to speak, is so diverse. I'm like, oh wow, you could easily go to like a horror con or a comic con or because you have a comic book, so you can talk about the comic book and the movie. It's the way that I once again no spoilers, but the way the movie goes, you could bring it to a horror fest type of thing, and then it's wrestling related, wrestling adjacent, so you can go to a WrestleCon type thing. So it just has so much diversity I don't want to sound like a pencil pusher all of a sudden, but I feel like it has so much diversity in its marketing strategies, right?
Yeah.
Literally, I feel like you could do that. Um, so, and I guess I'm going to put this into two parts. Maybe I'll say the first part. do you, and then we've touched on this, but I feel like it'd be cool to summarize it up. So, wrap this all up. We're almost hitting 2 hours. It's been a lot of fun. Been a lot of fun for me.
I was trying to break Julius Drager's record. I guess I ain't gonna break.
um, so do you have a vision? So for a match to kill, and then you kind of simmered into it. So that's why I kind of want to ask that question. That other question is. I know you're not going to tell me what it is, but it seems like you want to climb the ladder higher, and you kind of touched on that. But also, what's next? You know what I mean? Sounds like sounds like you might have something. So can you give us just a little teaser? Like maybe you're thinking like, hey, this is where we're going next with this.
Now, is this for John and I, or just me, or is it just for you?
It could be both. It could be both. You could do yours. You could do what you guys have, like what you think you guys have together or whatever.
Um, well, I think with John, John and I, as I think we mentioned that we have other ideas on how to expand. Like, John and I was adamant on doing. Okay, why don't we do it this way? Okay, let me just take this off because for John and I, we're going to take the hat off, and then when we talk about me, we're going to put the hat back on.
There you go. I like it.
Okay, all right.
I like
So
it.
for John and I, John has been adamant on indie wrestling documentaries for the stars, which I think is a great idea. Um, and then we also have other things in mind on possibly trying to extend the Match to Kill into a series. That's a
Okay.
possibility.
That would be fun.
That's very crucial. Um, and also trying to build relationships with other indie wrestling promotions, whatever we can do. So there's a lot of stuff. There's a broad range of things to be done because we have that pop culture type. I know people criticize Vince for his, and this takes me back to the Pro Wrestling is Dead. Pro Wrestling is Dead video I was telling you about from GTS Wrestling. How with the stuff about broad things, Vince was doing the right thing. Grim, the owner of GTS Wrestling, said. Yeah, you got to think broad. There's a lot of stuff. Professional wrestling is a broad business. I don't, and we shouldn't be saying like, well, this is wrestling. I know back in the day, I got some promoters didn't like me giving input, and I had this, and one guy even said, "We're wrestling. We're not sports entertainment. I don't want to hear this." But you got to have that mentality. I'm not saying you have to get like silly, overly
Right.
silly, but you got to have a broad mentality. Wrestling is a broad business.
Yeah.
It's a broad business, and all these indie companies could thrive when people just get deep. And I know it's hard. Here's why I have compassion for the indie promoters. They got a day job. You got guys working other jobs here. You got a family. And I know, I get it, and I know it's a lot. There's just a broad range of things. Get about the genre. There's just a broad range of things we could work with, and I think there's a lot of things that we're have in mind here, along with the initial plans of additional documentaries, trying to do a series, more comic books, things like that. There's a lot of things we could work. We have in mind here too. So that's where I see that, and so that's where John and I now we're going to go into this now. Now I know people are saying now I don't want to work for a guy like this if he's going to be like. Don't worry, this is where. Let me tell you the inspiration, vision, all this other stuff here. Where do I see Justin Ciardullo if we have to take him just on an independent level here? We're going to see things not like how they were before. We're going to see better decisions being made. There's not going to be too many. I don't want to make any more irrational decision making. Where I'm going to be communicating with people that I feel like I could trust, and then it turns out they turn their backs on me. I'm more clever than ever to read between, and this is kind of like that the person in again, if I know people, not everyone's religious, but I just want to talk about the Bible, for example. The character, you could say it's the character, real person, whatever. Rebecca. What did Rebecca could see through the deception? And through my life experience, especially with that place I had to go through for five years and 5 months made me see through the lies and the deception and the masks and the masqueraders and the camouflages very, very deeply. I could smell someone who's deceiving you from a mile away. So I've changed quite a bit. So you're not going to see too much of that. With me, if I have to work with people as a promoter or booker, if I have to manage, if I wrestle again, you're going to see things more and more precisely. But there is going to be love. There's going to be compassion. There's going to be care. And I'm just, not just for I'm not talking about just for myself, for everyone around me. Because there's a lot of great, great talent. And also we have to understand too, I've got screwed many times in the wrestling business. Many, many times, got taken advantage of. They saw me as naive, benevolent. We could take advantage of him. I know there was a thing called the speaking out movement. Even though I wasn't even listed upon that, technically I am. I am a name that is under the hashtag speaking out movement. I am on that. I am definitely within there. So you could put my name on there too, with what I had to deal with. So that taught me a lot of what I have to do for the future. I can't go and, I can't just go and do silly things, do impulsive things like I did before. But I have a vision in mind too, that I don't want to get too deeply into it so much. I have to keep it a little bit on the down low, but I could tell you this much here. Sometimes you got to turn to blood to get more and more answers to succeed in professional wrestling. That's the best thing I could tell you.
There you go. There you go. Definitely loving it there. What do you? Woo, woo. There you go. I mean, man, no. I really, really, really enjoy your passion, man. There's just something about the idea that you're just, you're ready to go. I love the hat, of the fedora too, man.
Thank you.
It looks really snazzy. If I do say so myself.
Thank you.
But no, I definitely respect and appreciate that. There's so much, and to be fair, I mean, there's so many promotions out there in the universe. I don't say somebody, maybe somebody will see this, give you a call, get you back in the game. And you talked about how hard it is. I feel like maybe me and Drake, I don't know if me and Drake talked about it on the podcast specifically or just in regular life when we were talking, but people like Drew Cordero, who owns Beyond Wrestling and runs the Wrestling Open, that guy's got to work really goddamn hard, and he's got other things, and he's got the little restaurant that he runs, and he sells the grilled cheese and whatever else. So like, just the logistics nightmare of trying to find a venue that's gonna let a wrestling show run in their place, because sometimes there's a social stigma, right? Like, oh, we don't want these idiots in their underwear with their stupid fans that are going to get drunk and rowdy in our building. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many social stigmas. I'm sure there's plenty of time for any one of those promoters. Shout out to Chase Del Monte or Evan over at Focus Pro. Where, you call these people and you think, hey, can we do the job with you? And they're like, nah, get out of here, right? I always find it fascinating that we have HOG wrestling and they always wrestle in churches. Like, I don't know how that man must be he must be a great at sales pitch to be able to get everybody to
House of Glory.
Yeah, House of Glory. Yeah, HOG, man. The fact that House of Glory is able to actually wrestle in churches all the time, I'm just like, I don't know, dude. This is like, I actually went to a show in September, and it was like the first time I didn't swear at a wrestling show. And they were like, oh, I'm like, listen, we're in God's house. I'm not going to say those words with all due respect. All right. If you want to, that's between you and Jesus. Okay. Whatever you want to do, that's between you and Jesus. We're in God's house. I'm gonna mind my manners. So it was still a great show, but the fact that we wrestling fans get to be in there in the first place, like, let's show this place, let's show this venue the respect it deserves for hosting us to begin with. We're all adults, right? We should be acting like adults. So I commend you for saying that. You're like, hey, you know what? It's time to step up in every which way to a new level and be a new Gia Savitz, right? That's how how can you get much better than that? And once again, it reciprocates because when we've said it so far in the last few hours as we have, we as humans, you're supposed to evolve. You're supposed to get better. You're supposed to change. You learn from your mistakes. You learn from over time, and
Yeah.
you see so many things in your life that you're just like, hey, man, um, I went through this experience, I learned from it, and maybe I don't want to do it again, right? Or maybe if I get stuck doing it again, I'm going to do it differently. And that's okay, right? We're humans. We're humans, all right? Unfortunately, we're humans,
Yeah.
and we live in this world, and this world can be crazy in every which way, sometimes in within our reach, mostly not within our reach, mostly something we can't control, right? So sometimes you got to learn how to just accept the reality of the situation and accept the whole of life and not just the parts, right? Not just pick and choose what you want from this world. Sometimes you got to live in reality and see that there's even consequences and repercussions to your actions or inability to have an action, right? So great, man. I don't know how to better. I don't know how better to keep going or cap on that. To be quite frank, I absolutely love what you said for sure. So once again, everybody, the match to kill, Gia Savitz, it's everywhere. Go see it. Watch it right now. Get the comic book. Three. He said there's three variants. You guys like collectibles? Pick all three, and then I want to say I got the one that you said. There's the digital version that I got.
Yeah, so I'll explain more about that. So we have the default cover, which is kind of like which is it's more like this tough image. It looks kind of like a martial arts type cover of like it kind of reminds me of like one of those like or it looks like even like a double dragon type image kind of thing. But the first cover is really cool. Then we have the variant which shows the Gia Savitz, which I know I didn't say too much about this, but Gia Savitz is known for being LGBTQIA wrestler, part of that community. But there's a lot more to Gia Savitz. So if you haven't seen any of my past stuff on YouTube or social media, you'll get to know more of the character more in the documentary, and you'll get a sense of that there's a broader sense than just LGBTQIA community involved in that, revolving around that. Sorry. The second cover is the Gia cover. It's drawn out by Valentin Quinones, who did the variant cover. Wonderful human being, and he did the variant cover. So you had me with the blonde wig because there was a time I did the Madonna. Did you ever see the Madonna Open Your Heart music video where she takes the
Yeah,
blonde wig off? Well, I got inspired by that video to make my NEWA debut entrance. So I had the blonde wig on and I went in there, dropped on my knees, like Open Your Heart. Because I used to come out to Madonna like a virgin. That was my theme
yeah.
that was my theme song. So I came out with the wig off and then I threw out the wig to the side. So that's the variant, that's the second cover. That's more money. That I believe I think we're charging $10 for that cover. And then we have the digital, strictly digital, because the first two are physical and digital. But then we have the only digital, only third cover, Frankie cover, which is a phenomenal cover. And that cover was interesting because Patrick surprised us with that. I got a surprise for, and he showed us the cover, and we were like, "Wow, this is good." That's a digital, which is $4.99. And again, you can go to the JambonePictures.com website and order it because we have the link of legacycomics.com through there, or you can just go to www.legacycomics.com. That's LEGACYCOMIX.com. And you order it on there. And there's a lot of wrestling comic books coming out now. Brody Lee got a comic book coming out. A lot of people are coming out with comic books. I look at what John and I are doing equivalent to Nirvana coming in with the hair bands.
Right.
Because I feel like with our stuff, I'm looking at everyone's movies and comic books and wrestling, and I feel like we're like Nirvana. We're like these guys or Korn, playing out of tune guitars.
Right.
That's what we are. And and so when you look at our stuff and you look at the movie and you buy the comic book, you're going to see something very, very unprecedented. Maybe some parallels to what you see with the current climate, what's out there, but it's definitely unprecedented compared to everyone else. Definitely, definitely buy that comic book and definitely check out the Match to Kill.
You heard it here, folks. Go do it. I've seen it. And once you see it, then we can talk in person about, you know what I mean? If somebody
Yeah,
comes up to me like, hey, I saw it and I'll talk to you. Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah. Otherwise, see it first.
yeah.
No spoilers. I don't believe in that stuff, anyways. As a person who went to film school, I don't believe in spoilers. In fact, I only spoiled a movie one time in my entire life, and I felt terrible about it because it was a James Bond film. Daniel Craig. I can't remember the name of it now, but I think it was like 2008, 2009, 2010, something around there. And my brother and I normally go to the movies together. My brother Michael, and he came up to me and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe." I mean, once again, this is like a 16-year-old film, so if you haven't seen it, that's not spoiling a movie. That's you being late on the draw here. Let's just caveat that. Like, wait, he's gonna spoil the movie, and he just said he doesn't spoil movies. All right, well, there's like a 10-year time limit. If you haven't seen Bambi, I'm not spoiling anything for you. You should have known by now, right? But he was talking to me about it, and he guessed how in the movie the character of M, played by Judi Dench, was going to die. But he said it in a way as a matter of fact. So I thought he had seen the movie, right? Because normally we had seen them together, but I went and saw it by myself. And he came over and he's like, "Oh yeah, I can't believe Judi Dench died in the movie." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I can't believe that either." And he's like, "Oh, I was guessing." And I was like, "Oh no, just spoiled the whole movie for you." Good guess, bro, but I felt bad. It's been like 15 years and I still feel bad. So no spoilers in this damn house. You understand? Go see the Match to Kill. Get the damn comic book. This stuff is great. Thank you so much again for coming on here today. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. I had a wonderful time. I think this was great. I very much am very excited. Hopefully, I get to see you in like a show. Hopefully you guys are able to get that going. And there's maybe you can reach out and let me know if you guys get anywhere, and maybe I can go to a show. I've been wanting to take a road trip down to New York or New Jersey, or I did one to Philly last year. I am going to WrestleMania in April. But it would be cool to or Connecticut. I haven't been to a Connecticut show in a while, so if you get one of those guys to hook it up, let me know. Man, I can go down there. We can hang out, buy you a beer or something. We can check things out together. Besides, or otherwise, I'll just be at the table going, "Buy this stuff. Come over here and buy this stuff." I love being the hype guy. That's what I do. I
Thank
love
you.
to be like, yeah.
Thank you.
They're like, "I don't want to be obnoxious." Don't worry, you got me. I'll be obnoxious. It's fun. I find
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
I find it to be fun. To be quite frank, it's
yeah.
great. It's a blast for me. So. But yeah, thank you again so much for being here today. For anybody who's going to be watching this, the next talking about Test of Strength, Connecticut's own, the chef Peter Gianni is going to be the next person on the docket after this particular episode, and just after him, it'll actually be the most trusted man in professional wrestling, the Silver Sniper, T.J. Crawford. So those are the next two episodes after this one lined up. But once again, Justin, thank you so much for being in here today, and hope you had
My
a great
pleasure.
time. And for everybody else, peace out.
Thank you so much. Take care.